We've just pulled off one of the most surprising moves of this entire window as we have reached an agreement to sign Julio Enciso from Brighton. What's going on? Is there a master plan to this deal? We're about to have this conversation. So my friends, I hope you guys enjoy the video today. But special announcements right now. The third kit is officially out, and boy is this thing looking like an absolute thing of beauty. As we know, it's inspired by the Total 90 era, a throwback to the past. The colors look amazing, blue, gold and silver. The '05 Chelsea badge is back as well too, and it's looking, bro, it looks pretty, it looks clean. It looks clean. It looks like a must cop this summer. I've already placed my order in. I'm just hoping that large is going to fit me. Hopefully it will, you know what I mean? But you guys, if you're looking on copying this right now in time before this item sells out, this is your opportunity. This is your chance. And I'd appreciate if you guys support the channel by using one of my affiliate links, which you'll find in the card above, description below. And if you do so, do not forget to use Nini10 at checkout to get a full 10% off your final order. So leave your thoughts and opinions on this new third kit. Is this a must cop? Is this a must drop? Let us know how you're feeling below. But right now, my friends, let's tackle one of the first big stories today. And we discussed the latest surrounding Renato Veiga because finally we have reached an agreement with Villarreal over the player's sale. And I have to say, the money is pretty respectable. It's not too bad. As confirmed by Fabrizio Romano, Villarreal reaching the agreement. The deal is going to be a package totaling 29.5 million, just under 30 million. But what makes this tastier, what adds more meat to this meal, is that add-ons are included. And of course, there is a heavy sell-on clause as well. Now, in terms of the actual deal, my guys, it works out like this. It's 25 mil euros fixed fee, 4.5 million in additional add-ons. However, there are sell-on clauses. And Romano seems to suggest that these sell-on clauses range from 20% all the way to 40%, depending on the variables in Vega's contract. So you'd imagine that, I don't know, the better he performs at Villarreal, maybe the sell-on clause decreases because they want to make money from his sale, right? I guess maybe the worse he performs, potentially, the more money we would receive, which would protect our future earnings in the long term, right? So I think that's a deal that makes sense for all parties, and it explains why sometimes negotiations can take a bit longer when you have to work through these like tiny, minute details to find the best possible deal for yourselves, right? Now, in yesterday's video, I did confirm the fact that I would not be surprised if sell-on clauses played a big part in allowing this deal to go over the line. So why would sell-on clauses work for Villarreal, but not Atleti? I think it's quite obvious. Villarreal are more likely to sell if he performs right, because they are notoriously a selling club, and, you know, they kind of feed the big clubs with talents. I mean, we've signed Jorgensen, we've signed Nicholas Jackson from them. I think it tells you what you need to know. Whereas with Atleti, on the other hand, well, if he performs for them, they're less likely to want to sell in time. And obviously, if he's good for them, he'll be playing, and he might be there in the long term. But by the time they sell him, it will just be, you know, too late to receive that type of money. So I think for us, it's probably the best, fairest deal we can find financially. In terms of a career move, if you're Veiga, you're thinking, you know, you had Juve, you had Atleti. You've had so many big clubs in Germany like Bayern and Dortmund showing interest, but it was the money in the end which, you know, made the deal not go through. But I think with Villarreal, there's a moment for Veiga now to perform, play, and showcase his talents. Because if he does that, he knows, you know what, if I want the big move again, I need to work for that big move. I need to perform for that big move. I need to ensure that my form for Villarreal means that I'm part of the Portuguese squad for the World Cup. That's how he has to think right now in terms of his future. So how are you guys feeling? Renato Veiga is finally out, and I think this brings our total earnings this summer now to over 200 million. So it's looking pretty interesting in that aspect. But right now, my friends, let's discuss the big story that's dominated the last few hours. And man, we have to talk about what is going on with Julio Enciso. And I'm going to get this on right now. Yeah, this news surprised me for sure. I was very busy last night, so I couldn't even make it at the time I wanted to. But now I can really sink my teeth into things. You guys know the deal by now. Blue Co, not Chelsea, have reached an agreement of around 20 mil euros to sign Julio Enciso from Brighton. It was David Ornstein. He dropped the dagger yesterday, just confirming this surprise news that no one saw coming at all. And I've got a lot of thoughts on this, which I'm going to tackle with the second part of this video. But let's just go through the news first. Let's go through the details at the moment. A part of me cynically feels like, is Julio Enciso the new Renato Veiga? Veiga last summer was the surprise signing no one saw coming. I'm going to explain my thoughts later on. But anyway, as confirmed by Ornstein, Blue Co, our parent company, reached a deal with Brighton for the sale, for the signing of the player. Personal terms have been agreed upon. A fee has been agreed upon. That fee is around 20 million euros, including add-ons, but it's believed to be around 18.5 million fixed fee with a further 4.5 million in add-ons. So it's, a pretty substantial deal. It's quite an expensive deal that not many people saw coming right now. We've learned from Fabrizio Romano that at the moment, Julio Enciso is on his way to London to complete his medical test as a new Blue Co player. Now, what is the plan specifically for him? The plan is for him to get loaned out to Strasbourg for the season, and then he has a future, of course, once that loan spell is over. Now, his contract expires in 2031, but there is an option to extend it to 2032. So there you have it. Julio Enciso will be in a Chelsea shirt very soon, probably in time for the 26-27 season, where future signings like Dene Evangelista, the Brazilian left-back we signed, as well as Saipatev, the exciting teen from Asia. We're still building for the future. And of course, we can't forget the big money one in Kenda. Giovanni Kenda coming to Chelsea Football Club. So, yeah, there you have it, you guys. Really surprising story, really surprising news. I guess in the end, maybe you could argue that Winston Lee has got the player he's had a lot of long-term interest in. Now, I remember last year talking about Julio Enciso links when he had a great Copa America group stage before Paraguay got kicked out. He was very promising there. And reports revealed all the way back last year that we had made inquiries over the possibility of signing him. His market value was capped at 22 mil euros at the time, and I think Brighton wanted at least 50 mil, something ridiculous. So does this explain why we've taken the opportunity? Because for a long-term target that, listen, Winston Lee and Sam Jewell, two guys who were instrumental in bringing him from Paraguay to Brighton, they've done their research, they know this guy inside and out, and they see value in him. We don't know what form that value's in. Is that value in the form of a first team player, squad player, Chelsea player, or is that value in the form of market opportunity? This is where things get a little bit interesting. But Julio Enciso, I think, is a good talent. I'm surprised why Hertzler doesn't really find a positional need for him. He's got interesting ideas, Hertzler. Let's see long-term how a lot of these ideas make a bit of sense. You're looking at how Joao Pedro, of course, left him, even though he had a good season there last season. But I think you can see him playing up front, takes him to the next level, right? And that role didn't exist under Hertzler last season. So, right now, I want to have this conversation on why exactly have we decided to spend this type of money on Julio Enciso? What is the grand plan here? And is this someone that we should have high hopes for the future? Now, Enciso is someone that tactically, from that perspective, does have maybe a long-term viability. He can play across attacking positions. He can play in midfield as well. He's a good link type of player. And I'm curious to see where he plays at Strasbourg. Could he play behind the striker? We've seen that Rafinha has been using a 3-5-2 at times. He is quite flexible in terms of the formations that he uses at Strasbourg. And I guess, considering that multi-purpose players is one of the key principles under Blueco, it makes sense that both Strasbourg and ourselves follow those principles, right? And this is where Enciso probably makes a bit of sense. But I think the big elephant in the room that has to be addressed, which I can't help but shake my feelings off, this kind of screams to me like long-term investment, long-term potential sale. But you look at the attacking players we have at the moment who are still looking to bring in with Garnacho and Simmons at your Delaps, your Joao Pedros, your Palmers, your Estevals, your Pedros, your Gittins. And then you consider we have even more attacking guys coming in, and Saipatev, if I'm saying his name properly, which I clearly aren't, Kenda coming through as well, and now the potential arrival of Enciso. It does scream hoarding, but I think that's always been Chelsea's strategy. There isn't debate to have morally if this is the right direction for football to go in. If you want my just quick opinion, I don't think it is, even though we are profiting from these types of dealings for ourselves, right? I guess for us, kind of like cutting out the middleman to get access to these types of players. And it's like, well, listen, after a season and a half, or even less than that sometimes, if we don't see value in you, we know that we can play a trade you, we can bring that money in, and that money means that we don't lose out on anything, and we can literally reinvest that into signing someone else and just keep that, revolving door and that conveyor belt going and going and going. From Enciso's part, though, he does have a lot of Prem experience, and if it wasn't for the injury, and again, when you have long-term serious injuries, I'm sure a lot of you guys who are tapped into football, you understand the difficulties that these players face coming back physically. It takes a lot of time to get used to your body again, to get used to a new routine, to rebuild yourself. It's not an easy, simple thing to do. And then after that, there's a psychological barrier you have to get past, It was your game beforehand which put you in that position where you got the injury. Now you're back. You might have to adapt. You might have to do things a little bit differently. You might have to think, you might second guess yourself a little bit more than you should. So there's a reason why most players who return back from injury don't just instantly start, hitting the ground, firing. They need a little bit of time to find themselves and acclimatize. And I guess at least having that loan spell at Ipswich, just giving him that access to minutes, was pretty similar in terms of what we did with Loftus-Cheek when he went to Fulham on loan, right? So from that aspect, I'm building up the point that, Enciso could be signed at the right time to go to a Strasbourg to just continue that development for his future return. Just because you have to take a step down a little bit doesn't mean that's his new level. You have to take a step down sometimes to find yourself before you go back up. And I think if you're Enciso, you've seen how, Valentin Barco has excelled under Rafinha at Strasbourg. He left the Brighton model where he got kind of suffocated. Surprisingly, wasn't much use for him. He was kind of let go quite easily. And now he is finding himself in Ligue 1 under Rafinha, one of the key players at Strasbourg. And Strasbourg is an incredible developmental club, of course, to, play your game, play your football, be in an environment that could get you ready for a Chelsea position the following season, whilst getting access to European minutes as well, whilst playing for one of the most hottest, exciting young teams in Europe's top 5 divisions right now. There's a good South American presence there. There's a close tie to Chelsea in terms of the environment you can find yourself in and developing. I think it makes a lot of sense for Enciso to accept a move like this. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Chelsea financially, investment-wise, to sign this player up right now. Because if he was, let's say hypothetically, if he was to get sold again, you're probably not selling him for under the value that you bought him for, right? Especially when add-ons usually mean that certain, game time or like match records have to be met for Brighton to earn the full amount of money. And as I'm saying, it's around 20 22 million euros in total. That's like around what, 16 million pounds, which means that you've probably paid 14 million as the fixed fee for a player like Enciso. That is not bad. And considering that we've seen many players rejuvenate and find themselves at Strasbourg under Rossignol, there's a chance that if he doesn't make it here, he's going to make it in our bank balance. And I guess this is part of the reality of the deals we do, right? We need to sell to help with our books. So now that we don't have Cobham grads that you can sell for 20, 30, 40, 50 mil a piece right now, and I'm sure that time will come in the future, but they need a few more seasons. The next big thing right now is to sign, what's the word I'm looking for? Underdeveloped talents or emerging talents. And I think this is where the comparisons to Renato Veiga can finally end this point. Veiga was signed for around 12 mil euros. He now has been sold for 30 mil euros essentially. And there are big futures to earn from his sale in the not too distant future. It seems like this is the type of business we are doing. It is a bit dog eat dog, but I guess from the player's perspective, if you're in Enciso, you think to yourself, well, listen, this is the best environment for me outside of the offers I was getting from Palmeiras and from South America or from smaller, lesser clubs in Europe. I know I'm better than that level. This is a golden ticket for Enciso to reclaim his game back and hopefully just try and make up for the lost seasons out with injuries. So, my friends, share your thoughts and opinions on the signing of Julio Enciso. You know, we do things outside the box and a bit abstract, but we can't always say, just because it feels weird, that the club are reckless and moving stupid. Remember, Blueco are funding this. That's the loophole in which we can even secure this deal without using actual Chelsea money, which we're using for your Simmons and your Garnachos. So let's watch this space. Let's see what happens. And my friends, make sure you guys share your thoughts and opinions. So right now, we end things very quickly with the final story. And Axel Disasi is at the moment holding direct conversations with Bournemouth. Now, this came courtesy of Sasha Tavalieri. At the moment, we're learning Brighton are starting off negotiations with a loan option first. Now, we don't like loan options, but there is flexibility. That means that maybe a loan option evolves into becoming an obligation, which can make a lot more sense for all parties. So let's see what happens there. We're going to need to sell this guy, but I think there's a reality we have to accept for where we find ourselves in the market right now. The window ends in less than 2 weeks' time, and normally in positions like this, clubs who are interested in our players come right near the end where they kind of know that there's a little bit of desperation to have to move on and sell certain players. So this is where you can get a lot of quality players at really great prices. So, you know, it's no surprise that this is going to happen, in my opinion. But again, Disasi had a lot of interest from bigger, more prestigious clubs, but the valuations were too prohibitive for them to want to strike any deal down. Another thing I think about whenever I think about Disasi too is that I just always felt like this guy was never going to have a real long-term future here, because you sign someone that doesn't suit playing in a high line. We were always going to be a high line defensive team. So what was really the point? £37 million that we spent on this guy. That's a lot of money. And when he first signed for us, he was signed under the pretense that this could boost his rankings with the French national team squad, which is absolute cap. I just make this point because, listen, we're going to continue to do these types of deals. Hopefully, we're showing signs now that we're doing things more effectively by buying them younger and finding these like unique opportunities. I can respect that when these guys first came through, maybe everything wasn't fully firing on all cylinders, because there are consequences when these types of deals don't pay off, because we're not going to get a profit from him, and we are going to lose out on a little bit of money. And was it necessarily fair for the player? And then how will other targets we look at feel about Chelsea if they feel like their careers could kind of be, you know, pushed off their trajectories? So that's just food for thought. But as I said, it does feel like maybe we've kind of learn from some of these mistakes we was making before. So my friends, that's everything today. Share your thoughts and opinions, and I'll catch you guys with the preview for West Ham. Cool.